Today's topic is sales growth and how we chart the unpredictable waters that we find ourselves in at the moment. And I suppose you would say that there's never a dull moment in terms of sales. There's always something to test your mettle, and there's always ways to optimize what you're doing. But at the same time, we see a lot of what are called kind of growth hack techniques that are sometimes one step away from spam techniques, whereas what most companies are interested in, ourselves included, are sort of scalable and repeatable sales strategies that work in terms of bringing on customers and keeping them. So today we have two businesses represented. Davey Sims from Photonic Measurements and Wayne Kramer from GWE Energy, both on different stages of their journeys, and they'll introduce themselves in a second. But we'll just want to take the time today to understand what's working for the guys, what's not working, what has changed over the last 12 to 18 months, and what the outlook is. And there's time for questions. Feel free to drop a question into the chat. We will finish up at 11:30. And if you've any questions, drop them in. We'll either, if they're relevant at the time, we'll throw them in. Otherwise, we'll have a few minutes at the end for questions. So to kick things off, just keen to know, just to set the scene, Davey, first of all, could you sort of introduce yourself, the company, what your main sort of sales channels are, and what your main kind of goals are for the next 3 years, and I suppose a bit about what growth has looked like recently.
Yes, Rich, thanks very much. So I'm Davey Sims. I'm the Sales Director of Photonic Measurements. We're a venture capital funded startup based in Lisburn, Northern Ireland, and we're focused on the water industry. So we build instruments that basically shine a UV light through the water, and we can detect the water quality. And the two key markets that we sell into are the drinking water industry, so where you get your drinking water from. So helping them in terms of their reliability of the water, and in terms of the wastewater industry, in terms of when you flush your toilet, where that goes and how they manage that type of water. So the technology is quite new in terms of it has been done with sort of older bulb technology, whereas ours is a longer lifetime using UV LEDs that provides better reliability and measurements.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of our sales growth, we doubled sales last year, and we're hoping to at least double, if not triple, this year. And the reason for the sales growth is we're trying to achieve two things at the same time. We're trying to increase our penetration into the UK and Ireland market, and then we're trying to replicate that with resellers and distributors around the world. And that's why we believe that we can hit the double or treble in sales in this coming year. And there was one other thing, was there, Rich?
Just how is it? You mentioned how it looked over the last, that you've doubled sales last year, but
yeah,
we can maybe come back to how some of the more unpredictable aspects of the last couple of years, so how you've dealt with those. Wayne, if you could introduce yourself and give us a similar background, that would be great.
Hello everybody, my name is Wayne Kramer. I'm the Managing Director of GWE Group. We started in 1994. It's the 28th year this year, and we manufacture a range of energy saving products to reduce the carbon footprint of businesses, and more importantly the electricity running costs for businesses as well, which is quite big at the moment. Our primary sales strategy is through reseller partners. So we recruit other sales-led organizations. We focus on the technical support and the manufacturing aspect, but we recruit sales-led organizations often that have already got complementary products in the market, and then they add our products to their customer offer. For From a growth perspective, I'm 1 year into a 5-year growth plan. I bought my business partner of 25 years out of the business at the start of the pandemic, and put in place now a 5-year growth plan to grow the business 5-fold. I knew that we needed to get all the processes and management systems and people in place to manage them in readiness for that growth drive, so that it would be sustainable for us, and Flowlens has been quite a big part of that for us. In the last couple of years, it's not really been a great benchmark from a growth point of view with everything that's been going on, but we have maintained a solid performance through that time where others might have fallen away a little bit. We've managed to grow the business. We've added more team members to manage the new processes all throughout that period. We've also set up a brand new sales and marketing department at the back end of last year. I was sort of in a bit of a position where I'd sort of not given that a high priority previously, purely because we got the strategy to work through reseller partners and they did their own sort of sales and marketing on our behalf. But I've come to realize that it's quite vital to the growth plan that we have our own sales and marketing that supports them, but also generates product awareness in the market as well.
Just following on from that, Wayne, how have you structured that team to create a repeatable process, and how do you benchmark what they're doing?
So one of the things is we've employed reseller partner managers. So that's been the biggest single change. So they now have their own reseller partners that they manage, and just the fact that they're going and having regular update meetings with the reseller partners, working through all their sales leads that they've got, and following up with them and holding them to account on a monthly basis, that's made a massive difference in the activity that the reseller partners. It's quite easy to get a reseller partner to add your product, but then it's a lot easier for some of their sales team to just stick with the products that they know that they've been selling for years, rather than the difficulty of getting the new products going. So having somebody that now holds them to account on a monthly basis is making a big difference to us. And then the second biggest thing that we've done is bringing in a marketing team as well. We've never really internally had a marketing team. So now we've started putting out regular social media posts across a lot of platforms, email marketing, and this is all pretty brand new to us. But what it is doing, it's generating a lot more awareness and generating inquiries. So we now, at the moment, currently this week, I'm interviewing to build up the sales support, the internal sales support team, because somebody's got to deal with all these additional inquiries. So that's what we're doing at the moment.
And for those inquiries, are you going to field them then directly, or are you going to funnel those through the reseller channel?
Yeah, the vast majority will still go through the reseller partner channel. So yeah, it's not so much sort of direct inquiries to us. It's so the marketing team's brief is to build more reseller partners, and same with the reseller partner managers. So some of the marketing's to get new reseller partners on board, and then, like I say, the inquiries then get filtered through the reseller partner channels.
Good stuff. David, could I come to you with the same question in terms of how you've structured a repeatable process within Photonic Measurements?
Yes, so in terms of similar to what Wayne mentioned there, in terms of the way we manage reseller partners or distributors, we have found that the same thing, that resellers will tend to sell what they know. So you need some sort of incentive and monitoring plan, be it on a monthly basis, to basically stay in touch with them, help them identify the opportunities if that's needed, but also to make sure that they're following up, they're having the right the right conversations with those opportunities, and also that you're arming them with the sales advantages of choosing our product in particular rather than somebody else. So trying to go that extra mile in terms of consultative selling with them makes a big difference. The from a tracking point of view in Flowlens, what we do track on well, pretty much on a weekly basis, but definitely on a monthly basis, we track the quotes out to each reseller, and across the company as a whole. So we look and see what our sales activity is. Is that turning into quotes, and then is that turning into orders? So having that sort of weekly, monthly discipline of tracking your quotes and orders, and the inquiries all on one report or all in one system has been really useful for me. In terms of managing inquiries, we obviously track those through the inquiries, the sales lead thing in Flowlens, so we can see what did it come from a LinkedIn, or was it direct to the website? Was it based around what timing of the Google ad, or was it based on an outbound phone call? So we're trying to monitor and see where are we getting our leads from, and how do we sort of scale up that process. So and that's a continual battle as to some things work at a particular time of the year, some things change, the economy changes, what's going on in different countries changes. For example, we've spent quite a long time building up a reseller and getting our product certified in Russia. And then the war comes along, so you've got to continually evolve as things change, and be adaptable and flexible.
Good stuff. Yeah, I know that's the only constant is that uncertainty, and as soon as one thing starts working, it's time to come up with a new thing, because and I think a lot about the sort of bottlenecks in our sales process, and the things that you always need to be vigilant for. Do you guys have a particular metric that is your leading indicator? Sales are a lagging indicator of all the other activities that are out there and that you're trying to move along. So I'm interested what would keep you awake at night if you knew something wasn't working?
Well, I'll jump in there. So the biggest thing that we've found is that a lot, being in the water industry, it's very much tender orientated and design specified. So what we're trying to do is get known earlier in the design process. So we're trying to talk to process engineers. We're trying to talk to civil construction and architects, and to get known with them, so that we can actually prove our value earlier on. And prove our value not just in terms of maybe lower capital costs, but also in terms of better ongoing operational cost savings for their clients. So one of the ways is, so that would be the biggest bottleneck for us, is in having those conversations with those type of designers. And I think that's the differentiator, has allowed us to sort of get in touch with them, prove our value. And if I wasn't able to do that, then I think obviously when it gets by the time it gets a tender, you're kind of on a you're probably 90% sure you're not going to win it if it's going to tender and you didn't know about the job before it started. So you need to build those relationships with people earlier on in the sales process. I'll pass on to you, Wayne.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, because our own internal sales and marketing department's relatively new, we're at a stage where we're still really learning and gathering data. Obviously, the holy grail is to know that many LinkedIn posts results in that many inquiries and that many sales leads that then results in that many orders. So that's the numbers that we're sort of gathering on a weekly and monthly basis to learn that. But one of the things that has been great is when we took on the first reseller partner manager, we'd got nothing. You know, it was basically, all right, what do we need to do? So we started with, just said to the guy, right, with this is how many resellers we've got. They're all yours. You sort of start following them up and doing that. And it became pretty quickly apparent that how many reseller partners one person could manage. So then we decided we needed to obviously bring another reseller partner manager on and then divide them up, and that'll continue to going. But the thing that Flowlens made really easy was once we'd documented the processes and understood what information needed recording on Flowlens and what information on each sales lead, and setting themselves tasks to follow up after they'd had a forecast meeting or whatever with the actual end reseller. It was very easy then to just box that up and say to the next reseller partner manager, this is what you do. So that was one of the things that's been really good from that perspective. So like I say, it's a bit difficult to understand where we are and what the numbers mean at the moment, but one thing that did become apparent is that we needed more reseller partner managers, and using this method has been an easy way to do that.
It's sort of like you have to own a dog and bark yourself, is a saying that somebody said to me whenever you start to get into the reseller channel, because you have to live life in their shoes for a period of time to understand all the nooks and crannies. And how have you found, imbuing them with the same sense of kind of pride and understanding of why GWE's products are better and why they should sell yours and not others? And they would even come to you with the same question after Wayne.
Yeah, I think the way that we work when we're bringing a reseller on board is they go through an onboarding process. So they do what we call reseller training, which is only like a half a day training session, but it spends as much time on the actual process of what they need to get across to the customer as it does about the actual products themselves. So the process that they follow is the process that we give them to follow. They don't have the sort of the discretion to go out and do whatever they want to do or say what they want to say. They follow the processes. They have the documentation that they need to fill in certain amounts of information. They use the same presentations that we give them to use with their end customers. So hopefully the message does get passed along.
David, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, in terms of we kind of do similar sort of training, but the biggest battle we have in terms of is really finding the right resellers. So and part of that has been down to perhaps we've in the past we would have probably find somebody who was interested in sort of selling a boxed instrument, and really what we've found out over the last year is that what we're in is consultative selling. So we're really into finding the right customer, finding the problems that they're having with their site, and then building the relationship with that plant operator. The good news is that for our resellers is that there is a lot more service revenue goes along with that proposition. So rather than shipping out a box and installing it and leaving it there, that there is the possibility of ongoing service revenue, which becomes quite attractive. So we've been trying to quantify what the actual dollars and cents is for each reseller based on their market, which obviously takes a bit of time to do because you've got to understand their market probably better than they do, and they're actually in the market. But trying to work with them to quantify how many systems they think they can sell in a year, how many they're gonna service in a year, and then show that becomes a compounding annual recurring revenue stream for them is a lot more attractive, and showing how how we help the reseller in terms of, you know, if you have a problem, we can ship something out to you, you know, within 24 hours. We've got stuff spares on the shelves, and that added value has really helped us in terms of winning the right resellers over. It's always a challenge because it is a big investment of time in terms of training somebody new. So you got to spend the time up front, I think, qualifying them, gaining their interest, and seeing whether they're excited about the opportunity. Because at the end of the day, what they do on a day-to-day basis determines, you know, how many units they're going to sell for you. But so you've got to see whether they're excited about that opportunity and whether the right person to be able to go and do the things that need done. So you know, it's very much moving towards more of a relationship selling. So we're relationship selling to end users through the reseller. So all those relationships are all important. And unfortunately, as we know with COVID, it's very difficult to build relationships via Zoom. So
That was going to be
being
my next
able,
question. How
yeah.
how have you worked around that in order?
Yeah, so you know, we have done regular training, you know, Zoom sessions. You know, typically what we would have done is maybe done half a day, and we've probably done that about 4 times rather than just the once, because it does take a lot more time to explain things and for it to sink in, you know, remotely, I think. And because you don't have the cost of travel or whatever, it's relatively inexpensive to do. Um, but I think it does take that extra effort and extra time to build that relationship, and to get the sales advantages across.
Just a quick thing to say, folks, there's only a few minutes left, so if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I just wanted to follow up, Davey, in terms of, you know, you can spend a lot of money on marketing, and you both mentioned that sort of link between your spend and what it's ultimately turning into in terms of sales. But I'm just, how have you experimented, Davey, with different channels? You mentioned a trade event earlier on, you know, and aligning marketing spend with those strategic outcomes, rather than just, hey, this is a nice branding exercise, or feeling we have to do something because our competitors are there.
Yeah, I think marketing is always the challenging one. You know, you can fairly quickly, you know, rack up a lot of money doing trade shows. You know, in my past jobs, trade shows were a key aspect of it. You know, in the current, because we haven't been able to do many trade shows, it hasn't been as we haven't really had the opportunity. We did one in November, and you know, it didn't really pay what we thought it was going to pay. Now, maybe that's because we picked incorrectly. Maybe because our customers weren't actually at that right trade show. It was more of an OEM type show, so our end users weren't really at the show. But you know, we've experimented quite a bit on Google Ads, which has sort of brought quite a few leads in, and we're continually trying to monitor that. We're more focused now on, you know, doing the outbound. You know, who is our end user that could really has the problems that we can solve. So trying to track that particular person down. The challenge we have in the water industry is typically they're not on LinkedIn. They're, you know, those guys aren't the type of people who put themselves on LinkedIn. You know, so we do cold calling, cold physical calling, drive out and see see where they are, knock on the door, and say hello. You know, we've found that we've had to do that. Because that's how a relationship starts, is doing those things, you know. So, you know, while the higher ups in the water industry are probably on LinkedIn and they're probably interested in these things, the guys on the ground are probably too busy or not interested in that. So it's a continual battle to try and find what is cost effective use of marketing.
Wayne, just on that topic, you know, thinking about your new marketing team, and you're not a marketing expert, so it could be easy to be hoodwinked into spending a lot of cash. But
Yeah.
how have you sort of embedded like a culture of continuous improvement into that function, so that, you know, you're you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It is relatively new, so we're pretty much just testing the water at the moment. I think what we've done is we've just put his finger in the air and come up with a budget for the first year, which we're trying to keep inside. We've looked at some of the areas that we wanted to improve. So we're having within that budget, there's a new website being done that's got some key points that it needs to achieve, which will hopefully benefit us going forward. So there's a new website which is not quite launched yet, but it's getting very close. And one of the things that we also want to do was employ an external marketing company to manage the lead generation from that new website. And the ones that we've been speaking to offer a service where they will be held accountable for lead generation, but we have to do a lot of the donkey work alongside it. So they come up with the strategy, and then we do our internal people do the actual sending out of the posts but they come up with a strategy of how it goes through the website and how they measure the performance of that. So that's the way that we've set off. Like I said, we're not quite there at the moment. All we're doing is internal activity. We're trying to get as much activity as possible. That's not really costing us a lot other than his own team staffing costs. But yeah, really then it's a case of seeing what results we do get and then revising the budgets accordingly.
Mm-hmm. I've just had a question from Ahmed, a couple of questions, but do you think virtual communications are becoming the norm, and should we adapt more ways to keep communications with customer healthy? And how can this be achieved from a marketing point of view? And maybe that's from the point of view where people are saturated with communications and that we get enough marketing. But either of you any thoughts on those queries?
I think we've found it very difficult through the pandemic to try and recruit new resellers and do the reseller training without it being face to face, because it is quite a technical thing that needs quite a lot of explanation and Q&A. And we have a training room with an overhead projector, and they can actually see the products and and a flip chart. I spend more time drawing than we've actually just got on the slide. So yeah, that's always been difficult to move to a virtual meeting. I've found. I'm sure it is possible, but like I say, at this moment in time, we did struggle to onboard many new resellers through that time. But at the same time now, we are making up for that, and I think the biggest thing where we used to, even before pandemic time, I used to run all the training myself. I used to run the training, get them all infused, and then pat them on the back. And some you'd never hear from again. Whereas now having the reseller partners that then follow up and provide the help and support, and even hand holding to the point where they start getting orders, that's made the biggest single difference. So
great strategy. Davey, any final thoughts on that?
Well, I think similar to you, Wayne, it is very difficult to explain a technical product. It's a lot easier to do it face to face, side by side, pressing the buttons, kicking the tires is always far better than doing it. But I do think that, the world has changed, so we've got to adapt and be better at doing those things. So what we've found useful is that we typically would send out, trial or demo kit to them so they can actually play and push the buttons. Obviously, it's a bigger investment, but we'd ask for some sort of, commitment before we would do that with particular resellers. But they get to play with the kit right there and then do the experiments that with their own kit in their own room, and we're kind of as best we are side by side with them. So that's one way of doing like a hybrid approach. But from a marketing point of view, I think what we're trying to focus on marketing is what's actually converting, what's actually working. What's building trust and what's building a relationship with with customers so that they you know, get to know, like, and trust us, and can see our advantages of the way we do business rather than our competitors. But it does take time. Now that we're able to get out and about, you know, it does make it easier to build that trust and look somebody in the eyes and say, look, if this thing breaks, we will fix it. We will come and fix it. You know, goes a long way versus, you know, talking to somebody 1,000 miles away over a SIM call. You know, that's how you know whether they're bought into you and you're bought into them, is whenever, you know, you've built that trust.
Exactly.
I think from our point of view, it's here to stay, and I think we've embraced the fact that the initial meetings can all be virtual. The initial meeting, but at some point we do feel like the point of getting somebody on board has to be a face-to-face one.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, that brings us to time, guys. Wayne, Davey, thanks very much. Ahmed, appreciate the question. I suppose we could probably talk all day about these things. It deserves an in-person Flowlens sales strategy workshop, perhaps, to share ideas and things like that. But it's clear, obviously, the relationships are key, and investing in those relationships, you can't run away from it, even if it's made harder by the times we find ourselves in. And trust is critical, ever more so today. But tracking where your spend is actually turning into results, as well, is key, and that's one of those nice little things that Flowlens does out of the box. So good to get the plug in there.
There you go.
So yes, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Davey, thank you, Wayne, for your time. The recording will be on YouTube very shortly.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks,
now.
Rich.
Very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, guys.